So in this season of Advent, we continue, and this morning we're sitting with with 1 Corinthians chapter 9, specifically verse 22. I think is a really interesting one for us to consider. Paul is sort of declaring, the shape of his ministry, about how he is doing everything he can to share the good news of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done. He says, "To the weak I became weak, so that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that I might by all means save some." I think there's this powerful acknowledgement that we see here in this verse that is consistent with a lot of the other writings of Paul, where he um, tries to imitate Christ, right? Probably the most well-known is Philippians 2, where Paul encourages the church, be imitators of Christ, and who didn't consider equality with God something to be held on to, but willingly gave that up in order to become human, and then, of course, to take on the form of a slave, and then even die on a cross, right? So the greatest moment ever in the history of the universe, of course, was the creator of said universe taking on human form in the form of an infant, in order to bring about wholeness and restoration and salvation to humanity and to all of creation. And so the greatest expression of becoming weak in order to win the weak, of course, is Jesus. And here we have Paul saying, "Look, to the weak I became weak, so that I might win the weak. I become all things to all people, that I might by all means save some." And so I think there's this quote from an ancient theologian, Cyril of Jerusalem, and he has this sort of celebration of how Jesus, or I'm sorry, of how Paul is in many ways representing Jesus in this moment, where just as Paul becomes weak to win the weak, uh, here Cyril of Jerusalem is pointing to Jesus, where he says, "Everywhere the Savior, of course, becomes all things to all people. To the hungry, bread; to the thirsty, water; to the dead, resurrection; to the sick, a physician; to sinners, redemption." And what I think we see here is that Paul is seeking to be um, that agent of salvation, agent of wholeness, and not, of course, that he's the one bringing it, but he's the one bringing the good message of how Jesus is ultimately uh, the one through whom we might achieve reconciliation and wholeness and salvation. But what Paul is doing here is he's willingly entering into the stories of other people. He's assuming their likeness, and he's doing so at cost to himself in order to make them whole again, um, by the power and grace of Jesus and Jesus alone. So I think it's a good reminder for me today to um, be attentive to the ways that I might enter into the story of others' weakness and hurting and pain, and do so in a way that is costly to myself, because that is what Jesus calls us into. He calls us into the stories of other people, to enter into their likeness at cost to ourselves, and of course, in order to make them whole again as we point toward Jesus, the agent, the author, um, the creator of all things, and agent of salvation and restoration and wholeness, here on earth as it is in heaven. So may we recognize that Jesus is that answer of salvation, and may we find ourselves willingly entering into weakness, into the stories of other people, in order to point to Jesus, that agent of salvation. And may we do that today, tomorrow, and in all the days to come.